I don't want this to be a really serious video, but I don't want to joke about things too much either, because I have a tendency to do that, especially when I'm in shock about things. Yesterday I announced on my personal Facebook page that I had breast cancer. I was diagnosed yesterday, and I was really taken aback by the amount of people that commented, that were wishing me well. People that private messaged me that said I was brave. I don't think I am brave, because I'm going to have to jump cut this video quite a lot. I'm going to have to highly edit it. And some people that watch videos like that on YouTube, that are jump cut it a lot, won't mind that. But for those of you that aren't used to it, I'm sorry. I do want this video to spread a bit of awareness about the fact that women in their 20s and 30s, women under 40, can get breast cancer, and it's not as rare as you might think. I never ever checked my breasts. It wasn't a thing that kind of crossed my mind. It's really strange. It was basically a couple of weeks back. I was in the shower washing myself, and that's my breast that has the cancer, but I was just touching off it there, and I just thought, that feels a bit tender. Not sore, I just thought that feels a little bit strange. And I went downstairs to my mother. Yeah, I'm 37 and I live at home with my mother. Now, I haven't always lived here. I did actually just move back a few years ago. I'm going to blame the rental situation in Dublin. I went downstairs to my mother and I just said, what should normal breast tissue feel like? Then I was Googling, and at first I thought maybe it's just like dense tissue. Maybe I just happen to have dense breast tissue. That's all it is. So when I went to the doctor, after he examined me, he did find something. And initially I had thought it was like a big mass, or just like my whole breast was dense, but he said to me, there's a little lump beside a mass. That's initially what I was told, and I think all the colour drained from my face, and I'm pretty fucking pale anyway. But I was really shocked, and I think in that moment I did actually know. I just thought, it's breast cancer. I have fucking cancer. I wasn't listening properly because I was in so much shock, and he was saying something to me about an emergency, and I'd get an appointment straight away in Waterford Hospital. Waterford Hospital is the nearest one to me in Carlow that I should be going to, for a mammogram or an MRI. That's what he was talking about at that stage. And I just kept Googling and Googling, and my appointment was for, I think it was like 7 days later, and I just kept Googling and Googling. And some articles were coming up saying a mammogram doesn't always find cancer in women under 40 because there can be dense tissue. I was thinking, no, I'd love to go straight for an MRI or an ultrasound. My aunt, who's my godmother, she's just such an absolutely kind, lovely person, drove me and my mother all the way down to Waterford Hospital, and my mother was convinced it was just cysts. We were there from about 10 in the morning until 3:45. And in between all that, in between everything that was going on, all the different tests, we found an insomnia, and I absolutely love insomnia for vegans. Yeah, I'm vegan. This is the thing. So, like, I wouldn't have really thought I was high risk for breast cancer. I'm vegan. I've never smoked. I've had a few puffs at film festivals and music festivals. I drink every few weeks the last few years because I was fucking paranoid about things like cancer. And the start of the day in Waterford, I had a doctor examine me, and he said if he found anything suspicious, he'd have a doctor higher than him come in and take a look at it. So he said he did find something, and he was like, oh, I'm just going to disappear now and get my colleague. Actually, I don't think he said disappear, but you know what I mean. That's what it felt like, because I was left there, lying there for, it was probably 10 minutes, but it felt like about half an hour. I was telling myself, I'm just being paranoid, I have anxiety, this is not what it is, it's just cysts, because my mother had cysts removed when she was younger. He came back with the other doctor, and I had the gown off, and they were checking for dimpling of the skin and any kind of changes in the nipple or anything like that. They said no, there's nothing, and it seems unlikely that it might be cancer. Then I went for my mammogram, which I found a very bizarre experience, having your boobs absolutely squished. I think I have laughed through some of it because I just found it so fucking awkward. The thing I liked about the ultrasound was the thing that I really didn't like as well, that I could actually see on the screen the lumps. And at that stage I was told there were 2 lumps. One of them was 2 centimetres and the other one was smaller, and then there was a tiny lump on my lymph node, which really shocked me because the doctors earlier had put pressure there and nothing was swollen. One of my legs, when I was on the table, wouldn't stop shaking. I couldn't control it. I was trying to do breathing exercises. I had to tell them that I had anxiety. They were trying to calm me down. They asked if I liked watching hospital shows on TV, and I said only when George Clooney was in it, or, you know, my really lame attempt at humour. It just wasn't the right moment probably. My leg wouldn't stop shaking. They knew I was really nervous, and I think they knew there might have been something up, and they said, do you have somebody with you? And I said my mother. And they said, oh, do you know how we can find her? So I said I did tell her to go to a coffee shop. She looks a little bit like me, but older. She talks even more than me, so maybe that's how you'll find her. They did eventually find her. They brought her back. My mum held my hand and they did a biopsy. And I used to be the most squeamish person ever, which when I brought that up again to my mother today, she was kind of saying, you with your 14 ear piercings. But no, seriously, as a child, I was so scared of the dentist. I was so scared of needles. That end of the biopsy, I was okay with. But I just couldn't stop my legs shaking because I thought, this is cancer. This is cancer. Why me? And it seems so fucking selfish. Really fucking selfish. But that's what I thought. So then I had to wait a week. I was told it'd be a week for the results. It ended up being 6 days that I went back. I had gotten a letter in the post. And my mother at that stage was like, a letter in the post, this is a good sign. They would have called you if it was bad news. But I knew. 6 days later, I sat in the breast clinic waiting to go in to find out my results. My aunt very kindly drove us up again. I sat there with my aunt and my mum. I think it could have actually been about an hour and a half or 2 hours. It was something crazy like that waiting to go in. And the longer I waited, I knew it's definitely breast cancer. 3 of us sat down and I was told that it's triple negative breast cancer. And I just kept trying not to cry. Do you know, I don't even think I was trying not to cry because I was in so much shock. It was like, this isn't happening to me, this is happening to somebody else. And I really think that I feel so bad for my mum and my aunt because they were processing it and I just wasn't processing it properly. They were taking down information for me because I was being told about my diagnosis and what might happen, that sort of thing. But when I heard triple negative, I just thought this is something really, really bad. I was so scared. I asked what stage the cancer was at. They couldn't tell me. They said possibly stage 2 or 3. So when I was given my diagnosis, I was told that I'd also have to have a CT scan and I think it's an isotope bone scan the next week. So that's to see if the cancer has travelled anywhere else in my body, but they thought that was unlikely for them to know what type of treatment to do next. And they said with triple negative breast cancer, the best thing to usually do is chemo and then to remove the lumps. So chemo first to try to shrink them and then to remove them. And then after that, see what they're going to do. I suppose I do some sort of plan. But I just have been fucking Googling since. And I feel like the best thing possibly would just be a double mastectomy. I know it sounds crazy. I'm a life drawn model. I take my clothes off for money for artists. I've said this before on YouTube and people know that about me. I'd like to think I'm not defined by my breasts. I'd like to think I'm single right now. I'd like to think someday I'll meet a lovely man who has a foot fetish, who knows? I do have nice feet, they're only a size 4. Sorry. Triple negative breast cancer is a genetic type. Initially I thought it was to do with my hormones because I was on the pill for on and off 20 years. I have very painful periods. I also have my period right now at the moment. That's why I'm acting a little bit hormonal apart from me being in shock, I'm sorry. But I did find out the type of cancer I have. It's not to do with that, it is genetic. And that's the thing that kind of really got to me as well, because there isn't a huge amount of breast cancer in my family, especially on my mother's side. If you have any doubts about your breasts, if you think there's some changes or something isn't quite right, like how it feels, the texture, if there's a lump, anything like that, a change in skin tone or anything, do tell somebody about it. Go to a doctor, get checked out. I know it doesn't seem normal for somebody in their 20s or 30s to be thinking like this all the time. Like, up until now, the only person, this is so pathetic, but the only main person I ever had in my head for having breast cancer in their 30s was Kylie Minogue. And I do think that she did a lot for breast cancer awareness, you know. But as I've said, if you have any doubts, do definitely get checked out. And if you're watching this right now, and you are a woman who has triple negative breast cancer, and you're only at the start of your journey, or you're somebody who's a survivor, I would really love to connect with you and find out about your treatment and your journey.